killed. And now here we go. When you start using words like Armageddon, we're going to have an Armageddon. That's in the Bible terms, the final battle between good and evil. Or when Council Member Marion Barry talks about this will lead to civil war. The bloodiest war, by the way, in American history was the Civil War. When you use that kind of rhetoric, you may piously say, well, of course, we wouldn't want anybody to get violent. But the people who do conduct campaigns of violence against young people who are transgender or who are gay, they use the same kind of justification. We all get threats on our life because we stand for things.
We all don't.
Let's talk about campaigns
I'm not black, nor
on
am I
another
gay.
level.
I still get those.
We have heard from other ministers. I don't know about you, from you, Reverend Jackson, about mobilizing to throw some of these people who voted for this out of office.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a priority for you?
Yes, it will be. We need to understand that anytime people say, we don't care what the people think, you're unqualified to lead. Anytime you just say, we're not even going to talk about this, we're not going to bring it to a vote, why should somebody support someone like that? So I'm a registered voter in the District of Columbia. I'm certainly not going to vote for these people. And we're going to do everything in our power to say, not on our watch.
All right, Executive Director of, you are Americans United for Separation of Church and State, Reverend Lynn.
Right.
Your viewpoint on that, if churches start to mobilize, as some ministers have mentioned in recent weeks, will you stand for that?
Well, no. I mean, Bishop Jackson, just like Reverend Evans and other people that I've talked to since this all occurred, are people who, as individuals, have every right to do anything they want. You can organize, you can form a pact with fellow clergy if you want to do that.
From the pulpit,
but you can't talk from the pulpit about specific candidates. You cannot stand up and say, we believe that the 11 members of the D.C. Council that voted for this should be ousted. They should have to find a new place of work. That would violate the tax status, the tax-free status of all of these churches.
Does that concern you, Reverend Jackson?
Well, it does, but you wouldn't do it that way. I'm speaking as an individual citizen. So first we're going to attack the issue, but I'm going to say that what I can do outside of pulpit is encourage like-minded people to say, why don't you run for office? We need some new people. And that's what we do in this democracy. So, no, I'm not going to preach a message on whoever and say, you know, that guy is going to do this. I've been around more than a few days, and that's against the law. So,
thank you.
You know, we're not going to violate the law. But privately, as he implied, if we don't have some teeth to it, why won't they do it on another issue? If the council can say, we can't agree on anything else, you would agree covering them, they don't agree on much, can't agree on anything else, we're going to be in unity around this issue that's controversial around the country, and nobody says you're going to have to answer about this concerning your job.
You know, one of the reasons it's controversial is because people assume, for example, that if there's gay marriage in the District of Columbia or some other state, that will mean every church will have to marry gay couples, whether that's against their theology or not. The truth is, no church has to do that. We don't have to have Jewish and non-Jewish people do not have some guarantee to be married in a synagogue. So that's a red herring, but it is used by the other side in a way that often distorts the way people think about this issue. When you clarify that, all of a sudden you got more and more folks on my side of this coin.
All right, we'll get your response to that, Reverend Jackson, when we come back on the other side of the break. And welcome back, everybody, to Viewpoint. Our guests this morning are debating the hot topic of gay marriage in the district and this vote that happened in the D.C. Council last week. Near silence from the White House, near silence from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on this particular vote. We know that Barack Obama has said that a marriage is between a man and a woman, and the White House maintains that. He is also in favor of civil unions. Make the distinction, draw the distinction for viewers out there. What is it?
Well, I think a civil union recognizes that two people live together. It erases some barriers, but our opponents, I believe, want same-sex marriage full-blown, and it's just a stopping point. I think if you can make some civil rights argument about people being able to visit their loved ones, other things of that nature that they deeply care about, there ought to have been in our political system some way of fashioning or shaping some kind of compromise so that people's rights aren't abridged, but the institution is protected. Civil unions as they stand today in many municipalities don't do that. You give people marriage without them. You basically give them everything. And the district had the most liberal domestic partnership laws in the union. Therefore, this whole thing is about them going toward same-sex marriage full-blown. It's not about the rights. And
is it about going to full-blown same-sex marriage?
One would hope so. I would hope so. I'd hope that the District of Columbia would join with the 5 other states that have made that decision either judicially or through the legislative process. And, you know, it's interesting. The governor of Maine, the most recent state to embrace same-sex marriage, he used to say, well, I'm against marriage. I'm for civil unions. But the more he thought about it, among other things, he started to say, well, we really can't allow one religious group that is powerful to impose its view on the civil institution of marriage. You know, nobody's trying to change the religious nature of marriage. That is a sacrament in many churches, a ritual in all churches. Understand that. But why should I, as a minister in a denomination, the United Church of Christ, that is permitted to do same-sex marriages, why should the state tell me that if I do that, it will not be recognized? That is an affront to the separate principle of separation of church and state, as it is deeply an affront to the civil rights traditions of our country.
Reverend Jackson, you said during the break that you'd like to see this put out there to a vote. We saw this in California. Many of the same people who voted for Barack Obama voted against gay marriage out there. Would we likely see that happen in the district if it were put to a vote, and how likely is that to happen?
Well, you got to jump through some hurdles, but we're going to start collecting signatures. You got to bring it before a referendum. And I worked in California, worked in Florida and Arizona. What happened really is that when people heard that they had a choice, 30 cases out of 30 where this has come to a vote of the people, they voted for traditional marriage because they said, hey, it's not good for our children, it's not good for society, it's not good for our future. They look beyond their personal opinions about gay people that they may love and be in their families and say, you know what, fundamentally, this is not what America needs to be about.
Well, that's the nice way to put it. The other way is that some very, very ugly things were done. In California, for example, where the Supreme Court decision was repudiated, there was an advertisement run that said that if this proposal or decision of the Supreme Court to affirm same-sex marriage was not overturned by referendum, little school children would be forced to go to lesbian weddings. The people who put that ad on the air literally stole some footage of people without the consent of their parents, showing children whose parents had voluntarily allowed them to go to a wedding of their teacher who happened to be a lesbian.
Right. But bring it back home for the district when we come right back.